If you are a manager struggling to get enough good and meaningful feedback from the members of your team, then this is an episode for you. Hello and welcome to the terminal count. For those of you who aren't aware, terminal count is a term that refers to the countdown during a rocket launch, where at the very end, during the last minute or so, the rocket itself actually takes control and the rocket's computer makes all the decisions about whether or not it's going to launch. And so once a week here on the Leadership Launchpad, I, Matt Gjertsen, do kind of this solo episode where we do a deep dive into one specific topic about leadership to try to give you actionable insights based on my experiences as the head of training development at SpaceX, as an instructor pilot in the US Air Force, and through working with startups all across the world. So let's get into the episode. Today, we are going to talk about feedback and specifically some of the ways that you can try to receive more feedback. Now, we've talked about this on previous episodes. So today I'm just going to be sharing a new technique that you can use. And the reason why this is so important, I think, is because, feedback is something that's really difficult for people to give. We're tribal creatures, we're social creatures. And so if you put yourself in an individual's shoes, they believe, human brains are kind of designed to believe that being part of the group is how you survive. And so if I'm part of a group and I'm looking up at my leader, I'm, of course, the number one thing I'm scared of is getting pushed out of the group. And the leader has the largest say in that. So when the leader asks, hey, do you have any feedback? Of course, I'm going to say, no, I don't have any feedback. And so that's kind of the challenge that you're trying to get over, the challenge that you're trying to get past of, okay, I'm the leader. I know there's this psychological pressure to make it difficult for people to share meaningful feedback for me, but you still need feedback, right? Feedback is the number one way that you can improve your performance. And so there's a whole bunch of techniques that you can use in order to get better feedback. But the one that I want to cover today specifically is this idea of using rankings to get better feedback. And I first discovered this actually many, many years ago. Probably about 8 years ago when I went to a leadership development training myself. And part of the program was these kind of 360 assessments where they sent me a link that I then sent to a couple members of my team and my boss and a peer, and they filled out an assessment. And when I looked at the assessment, one of the things that I noticed is it didn't simply ask, hey, how can Matt do better in certain things? What it did is it listed a bunch of, meaningful behaviors or qualities of a manager and said, rank these from best to worst, right? And I was again reminded of this at ATD recently when I went to a session that was led by Holly Betke, who is a former guest on the podcast, and we kind of dove into this a few weeks ago on the episode with her. And it was interesting because she mentioned this idea of ranking, and she did it in real time in front of the audience. She was co-presenting with somebody from her team, and it was so interesting to watch because, she had listed these 5 qualities that she was trying to improve about herself as a leader of, providing clear feedback or removing barriers for the team member. I forget exactly what it was, but she had 5 qualities that she was trying to improve about herself. And so she, again, live in front of this audience says, hey, so person on my team, rank me. How am I doing with this? And he did it because this is something they do on their team. But the interesting thing is that you could feel him squirming as he's going through and listening. This is number 1. This is number 2. Those were easy. As he gets to 4 and especially 5, he was like, he says, and he's like, I mean, you're really good at this too. I don't know. It's hard to say you're good at this, but I put it at number 5. And so you could see, now Holly, I could tell from meeting her, she's clearly an excellent manager. But there's also this pressure there, right? Of saying to your boss, hey, you're not good at this. You need to improve. But that's the nice thing about ranking is that that's not what you're saying, right? You're not saying you need to improve in this. The person on your team is simply saying, relative to one another, this is first and this is last. So I'm not saying you're bad. The form is forcing me to list those 1 to 5, and this is number 5. So even if you have the biggest, the somebody who's just always sucking up to you and always looking up to you and just refuses to give you any negative feedback, a ranking system can still give you valuable feedback, right? Because they might say you're excellent in all of them, but you're least excellent in number 5, right? And so that's still valuable data that otherwise, if you were just asking them, how can I improve? They may say nothing, right? Whereas this, at least you're gonna get a little bit more information, a little bit more data. So how do you do this? Because the one that there is one step that makes this a little bit more difficult and makes a little bit more work for you as the manager. And that's because when you're asking for feedback, if you go back a couple episodes and listen to the last time where we talked about asking more specific questions that assume there is feedback to give, there you're simply taking the time to formally think or to think about the question of, instead of saying, hey, do you have any feedback for me? Or hey, can you give me some feedback? You ask, what is one thing I could improve from that meeting? Or what is one way I could better support your work? Right. So you're getting more specific and assuming there's something there. This technique does take a little bit more work because you're ranking. And so you have to give them something to rank, right? And so I think the way Holly explained it in her talk, and the way I would agree with this is, you could say, take it from your company values, of say, maybe you list your company values and say, how am I leading up to these? Or if your company has leadership qualities or leadership values, list those. And if there's not something from the company that you can pull, then you would just have to kind of say, these are the things I'm working on, or these are the things that I care about as a leader. And you provide those. So that is the one thing. So step one, if you want to do this, is that you need to come up with a way to create a list of things that you care about. Step two maybe is you have to explain those to the people on your team, if they're not something directly pulled from the company. And then step three is provide, you need to create some kind of form or some kind of way for them to just simply rank them. This could be during a one-on-one session, it could be via email, but just some way where you want to make it very clear that just said, I just want a simple ranking. I don't care if you think I'm amazing at all of these. Obviously I'm better at some things and worse at others. And it's a great way for you to quickly get some data to understand what you need to focus on most, right? And then you can, once you identify that, then maybe you can start asking some of those other questions of, what's one way I could improve this for you? So then you get the more tactical data of how you can improve yourself. Hope this was helpful. As I said, I've used this before. I think it's a really valuable way. Ultimately, what we are trying to do as managers is find ways to continue to get the feedback that we need to improve. Human psychology makes that very difficult. And so the more techniques, the better in this case. So I hope you found this one effective. If you did, make sure to like the podcast, subscribe to the channel. If you can share this show with other people, I can't tell you how much it means to me. That absolutely is how the channel grows. So if you found this valuable, forward it, share it, do whatever it is with somebody else on your team, somebody else in your company, somebody else that you work with. And I thank you so much for that, and look forward to seeing you next time on the Leadership Launchpad. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you are looking for help turning your organization's great engineers into great managers, me and my team at Better Everyday Studios would love to help. We deliver targeted and interactive training workshops that are designed to help build the 3 fundamental skills of any new manager: building trust, giving feedback, and setting goals. Reach out to me through Matt@bettereverydaystudios.com so we can start making your organization better every day.